Welcome back to the Rebel Entrepreneur podcast. We have the second episode in season 4. I'm back on it. We're creating podcasts. We're having fun. And this is going to be an awesome episode for several reasons. The first is we're going to look at the past of Rebel Business School and how it was created, which I think will give you inspiration to grow your business to the next stage. We're going to look at the problems we're facing in the present, which will help share with you our way of thinking of business. And finally, we'll look at where we're going in the future, which has a bunch of questions to help you think about the future for your business. And I'm very excited today because I have two people with me on the show. Firstly, I have my business partner, my socio, Simon Paine. Welcome back to the show.
I'm not quite sure what you said then, but it concerns me. Hello, Alan. How are you?
Simon, no hablas español. No. I am excellent. I'm excited for this episode. I'm glad you're here. And also, we have Rebels employee number 1, Mr. Henry Nicholson.
Hello. We're back. We've got season 4. I didn't know when it was going to happen. I'm super excited. I'm muting myself because I'm flapping in the background and I want to keep it quiet.
Well, it was 5 months since the last episode, so I cannot believe it was 5 months off, but we're back and it's good. So today's episode, Henry is going to chair it. Simon and I are going to chime in with ideas, and as possible, we're going to make this as relevant to your business as we can to help you with our key thoughts, ideas, and apply it to what you're doing. So, Henry Nicholson, take the show away. Let's go.
Oi. Right. So I guess Rebel's got such an interesting... it's an interesting business, right? And everybody that we've ever spoken to, every partner we've ever worked with, anyone that's ever come through the course has just been obsessed with, like, why are you doing this? Why is this thing free? Like, I don't get it. Why are you devoting your time to helping a bunch of people that you've never met? I don't get it. And I thought, what a cool opportunity. What better way to kick off to sort of the start of season 4 than let's just dive into it and let's talk about the past. Let's talk about what we've achieved. Let's talk about why we're even here. And also, like, what's the plan going forward? What can we expect to see? What are we doing? You know, what's this whole thing about? So I just wanted to dive into it. And I guess, like, where better place to start than, like, individually from both of you? Like, what's the background? Like, where did this stuff come from? Why is this close to your heart? Like, Simon, like, why?
It was to do with magic mushrooms. That's where it all started. No, wait, that's a different story. I'm just kidding. It started because Alan wrote a 3-page handwritten letter of complaint to my boss. That's where it started. I was running a kind of an enterprise coaching service for people that were at a disadvantage, helping them get business ideas off the ground. And my boss walked towards me one day and holding these bits of paper, and I knew something bad was happening. And she said, Simon, somebody called Alan has written to the government, and the government have handed me the letter, and I think you're just the person. Oh no. I think they call it service recovery, right? So I'm under the desk doing up my shoelaces because I can see these bits of paper coming my way, and she's sort of staring at me. What are you doing down there? I said, just doing my shoelaces up. Oh, okay. So I took this letter and I read it, and I thought, wow, this guy's got a problem. So I made and how right I was. So I made an appointment with Alan. Like, I got in touch with him. And we met in Starbucks in Winchester in the south of the UK. And I arrived there. 2 things happened. Number 1, he ordered me a bucket of coffee, which made me think that this meeting wasn't going to be a quick one. And second thing that happened, he said to me, do you remember this, Al? You said, what can I do to help you? And I can remember at the time just like frowning at him going, like, what do you mean, what can you do to help me? You're the one with a 3-page written letter, fella. Like, you're the one who needs help, not me. So, and it just really kind of knocked me off my balance. And very quickly we clicked. We clicked over. I think I put a book in your hand or told you to read the 4 Hour Work Week. I think that was our first sort of personal development connection point. And we began a bunch of conversations that over the course of the next sort of 3.5 years, it was about, and I remember these words coming out of your mouth, Alan, and they were so inspiring. And it was, let's build a business school that makes people money instead of costs people money. Like, that's where the thing originated from. And the crux of Alan's complaint was the government funded support service that was called Business Link did more to put him off starting a business than it did to help. And that was like the genesis of our conversations. And I think that's, to me, that's where it all began. And one of your skills now is to really go like a laser to what the most simple explanation of what this thing is and what it could be, and then take massive action to go make it happen. And yeah, we started building out the ideas together from that moment. That's where it all began.
That was the beginning. And I felt that business plans and loans were not a way to actually help someone make money. It was the worst thing you could do, was to do that. And I think over the years, I've looked at the processes and the systems that people create to try and help people make progress. And actually, a lot of them stop people making progress. They're bureaucracy for bureaucracy's sake. They're ways to make money out of people. And we just don't need any of that. And it became my mission to free people to make progress. And like, my very original Genesis story would be going on an NLP course, which changed my confidence. And I felt confident, I felt more happy. And I was like, wow, this stuff's good. I want to tell everyone. Let me teach the world. And that kind of became my mission, was to find all of the good stuff from self-development learning, test it on myself at pace, as Simon likes to say, and then find out what works and share it with the world. And I was like, this bit works, this bit works, this bit really didn't work. I tried that. I tried writing a business plan, didn't work. I thought about borrowing money, didn't want to. That messes you up. That doesn't work. So my thing has always been, let's figure out what works by testing it on guinea pigs. Self-experimentation is what I like to say. And then teach the world what actually works.
I love that. The thought you've just triggered now, I was just sort of questioning, if I was to go back before we met and the work that I was doing before we met, that I've not thought about this for a long time. This is super interesting. So I think how I frame it now is that you were coming at this from an entrepreneur's perspective, that you were at the sharp end of trying to build something, having a go at making sales, getting stuck, figuring it out, running different experiments and so on. And whilst I'd had a go at a few business projects on and off with mixed success, the thing, I think that point in time when we met, I was coaching and mentoring and supporting people that had a disadvantaged background that were trying to get something off the ground. And it was so interesting looking back that you knew that business plans and loans didn't work from personal experience. I knew that business plans and loans didn't work from meeting reformed heroin smugglers, Afghani market traders, single parents that were trying to build a business around the kids, people that were trying to make money out of their hobby. And I saw how a government-funded service put them through a process because they didn't know what to do with them. So they would be referred to somebody else. Oh, you need to go and speak to that person about a grant. You need to speak to that person about how to fill in a business plan. You need to do this and you need to do that, and come back and see me when you've done it. But I didn't want to do that. Like, I wanted to make sure that whoever was in front of me left with progress, that they knew what they had to do next. So I kind of stumbled across this idea of, well, I'm not going to get them to fill out a business plan template because that's a waste of freaking time. Let's see if we can get them on the phone. Let's see if we can get them to set up a sales stall. Let's see if we can get them to send messages to their friends and family, because there's absolutely no way whatsoever a business plan is going to help that Afghani market trader setting up a market stall in Portsmouth to feed his family next week. Like, he needs to get out there and sell. And that was where that empowerment thing for me came from. And when I met you and you were going, well, yeah, you definitely don't want a business plan or a loan, do you? here's what you do. You start with a sale. And it sort of melted my rib cage a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's so simple. But why does no one teach this? Why isn't it taught anywhere? And it just seemed like an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, and I think, like even today, we're still fighting that, and I think that's something that we've always been fighting. It's really the antithesis of why we're here, and I think a large chunk of that is down to the funding available, and how these services are funded is based on outcome, and it's based on you'll only get paid when you've got that business plan document to prove that you've done some work.
Don't set me off, Henry.
Like,
you're trying to set me off.
It's just
you're trying to set me off.
That's my job. I'm prodding. So, like, and what is super interesting is how, and I've not actually looked at it like this before, where you've got, as you say, Simon, like Alan's coming in from the sharp end of like, I'm trying to do something. Why are you stopping me from doing something? Which is where that letter from complaint came from. Literally, what I've learned: never ever tell Alan that he can't do something. I've watched a waitress get absolutely folded in half in a cafe because she wasn't allowed to swap out mushrooms for egg. It was one of the pointiest moments of my life. Actually, no, it was toast. Sorry, yeah, toast is not egg. Egg is not toast. So you've got Alan, who's at the sharp end, who is a business owner trying to do something and is feeling blocked, and then you've got Simon on the other side, who is trying to help people, but is also being blocked from providing the right service because of that bureaucracy that you're talking about, Alan. And I think, yeah, we're still dealing with that today. So I guess at what point, so obviously you guys got together, there was that service recovery moment, you guys got together, had an incredible conversation. Fast forward a few months, like what was the moment where you both went, we're doing this, like this is beginning, we're starting a business together? Like, tell me about that bit. Like, when did that happen? And when was that first moment where you had that phone call together and you went, like, we're doing it?
So the first thing that happened was we actually wanted to launch a proper business school. So we wanted a building, we wanted all this stuff. Simon made friends with someone who got us a logo. Like, we called it the Rebel Business School. We were going to have a Rebel Business School. It was going to be a building. Then we did the business plan, and like, I'm already going, oh God, we're drifting away from our own thing. But we worked out we needed £250,000 to get a building to set it up. And like this, like, we haven't got our principles set by this point, but it feels the antithesis of our principles because we're going heavily into debt and we're getting a building right at the start, and it just felt wrong. And I can't remember who said it, but one of us was like, let's just do a pop-up. It was like, okay, cool, that's a funny name, let's do pop-up business school. And I dealt with some housing associations, running training courses for them, and Simon was like, housing associations do this stuff. I was like, okay, I'll set up a meeting. We set up a meeting with the one I worked with in Weston-super-Mare Alliance Homes, and we sold them the first ever 2-week pop-up business school. And Simon and I hid out in Weston-super-Mare for 2 weeks straight, eating curry and helping people build businesses. And it was the most transformative 2 weeks. And at the end of it, we didn't really make any money because I undercharged them, but we did okay. And both of us went, there is something here. This was incredible. There is something here. This is awesome. Let's do more of it. And then I was like, okay, we need to sell. But that's when I knew it was viable. That's when I knew it was. And that's how that first idea, that's how it launched in my head.
Yeah. That was a life-changing course for you, for me, for all of us, for all of the people that were participants of that course as well. And I think like the things that I learned in those early days, those early conversations that we had with Michael Williams, who was our first client, that was us co-creating a thing with him. We did the initial pitch. He went, there's something in that, do us a proposal. And we went, sure. So then we sort of went into that sales process, which I didn't really know how to sell this thing. Like, I think we were just kind of, open-hearted and open-minded, collaboratively shaping it together and also sharing the best of our ideas with him, and then it became a thing. And I think I remember the very first day of the course, we agreed that Alan would lead it to begin with, but we would co-present the whole thing. And then he would take some sessions, I'd take some sessions, but quite a lot of the time we were stood in front of 40, 50 people and presenting. I think that, like, the things that began to emerge for me were, this is a personal development course with a starting a business wrapper around it. Like, the people that we met, and it's still true now, they've got everything they need already within them. Our job is to uncover it, sprinkle a little bit of knowledge and skill, and shove people through the door of making a sale. And I think when Alan was stood there, the first thing that he said was, "What's stopping you?" And I can remember looking at him going, "What are you doing asking questions?" I was like, "What do you mean? I'd ask them questions. They might say things that I don't know the answers to. What?" And I didn't understand like what he was doing. Of course, I understand now. And I think our ability to hold the attention of a very diverse audience with lots and lots of different needs, some of them with a bunch of personal barriers, for 6 hours a day, every day for 2 weeks, whilst helping them make massive progress. I think, to me, that's as important, if not more important, than the fact that we're actually teaching people the skills to make money. It's like, these aren't skills that you'll forget. These are things that are going to help them and their families way past the end of the course. And I don't think we've quite figured out how to articulate that properly. And I feel like I might be going down a rabbit hole. So, Alan, what's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to summarize for the audience 3 things that I think they could take out of the first bit of this. And the first thought I wanted to give everyone listening is, if it's to be, it's up to me. I.e., no one else is going to build your business. You have to do it. Don't rely on someone else to give you a grant, someone else to support you. Don't rely on random things happening. You have to do it. The second thought that comes from this, which is one of the clearest principles, which I get worried about we don't always follow at times, is sell first, create second. And I think so many people spend years creating stuff that they can't sell. And it's like, skip all of that, sell first, create second. And then the third one is, after you've sold, it's taking that idea and relentlessly driving to make it real. So, it's up to you, sell it, and then relentlessly drive and make it real. And if you can follow that, after you've done it, you go, okay, there might actually be something here. And if you haven't sold it, you can come up with a new idea. And like, Pop-Up Business School was not our first idea. And we failed many times beforehand. So I just wanted to highlight that as a little summary of that first section before we get on to the next bit. Henry, keep us on track.
Yeah, for sure. I really want to dive in just in that last bit. I want to dive into like version 1, because I think that's something that I think is really important to highlight, that, you did the mini experiment thing. Like, there wasn't a business set up, you hadn't like registered a limited company and everything. You guys had come up with an idea and went, there's probably something going on, isn't there? And then you just spoke to people, right? And I guess like I've sort of got like 2 questions wrapped up into one. Like, what was it like? Like, what did version 1 look like? So if you can go back to that course in Weston-super-Mare, like, what was it like in the room? How many people were in there? What was the day-to-day activity? And also, like, what were you really there to do? Because there's a whole bit of, it's a business course, isn't it? But actually nothing that we've currently spoken about, other than that last bit that you've just said there, Al, about, if it's to be, it's up to me, sell first and then relentlessly drive. We've actually been speaking more about empowerment and enabling people and self-developing. Like, what were you guys actually there in the room to do?
So I'll answer the first one first because it made me smile. You said, what did it look like? And my first thought was not very pretty. Like, the promotional videos were, well, you were the eye candy. The promotional videos were us on a cream leather couch with my drying up out behind us. It wasn't pretty. It was in a random warehouse, sawdust in the corners. Like, it wasn't pretty, but we had nice chairs that we borrowed from a church. The lady helped us get them. It was incredible. And the people were there. What we were actually there to do, I think I remember, I still say this on courses, but I think I remember saying it at the very first one, like leaning in and whispering, like, don't tell the client, but I don't actually care if you start a business. I just want you to make progress. Whether you get a job, whether you're happy, don't care. I just want to help you make progress. And this course will have a bunch of tools that talk about business, but it will help you make progress in whatever you're doing. And I think that's still the current ethos. Just don't tell the partners.
What about you, Scott?
The thought that you just triggered, Al, was I remember these conversations a lot, which is we just want to help. We just want to help. And regardless of who's in front of us, what age, what stage of life they're at, what benefits they're claiming, what religion, country of origin, colour of skin, all of that stuff, it doesn't matter. Whoever you are, we just want to help. Let's find out about where you're feeling stuck and help you get past that as quickly as possible. And on to just to build on what you're saying, Alan, about progress. And I think that thing about we just want to help is an ethos that I'm very, very proud of. It's not written down anywhere. It's not in a mission statement. It's not on any of our values. It's almost implicit in the DNA of everybody in the Rebel team that we just want to help. We want to help the community. We want to help each other. We want to help participants make the progress that they want.
I love
and
that.
It was a messy room. There was a lot of sawdust in the room.
But again, like the chairs, you borrowed the chairs from a church. I find it absolutely amazing because for some people that stuff is natural, it's a no-brainer. But for so many people, it's not even in the realm of possibility. Like, how could I possibly sell something where I've borrowed everything? How could I possibly make money off of something that's cost me nothing? It's absolutely astonishing, and I think that is always something that needs to be front of mind. We remind ourselves still today. Like, we still get into a habit now where we're like, let's just pay for it because it's easier. But we have to remind ourselves, we can have a better impact by still creating things in the model that we're teaching. Just because we're earning a bit of money because we're doing it more regularly doesn't mean that we should be splashing a bunch of cash. There's a whole bunch. It's empowering. It is about empowerment. Yeah. So I guess we rebranded, so we're no longer the pop-up business school. So when the first idea came around, you were looking at buildings, you were looking at having something permanent. It was called the Rebel School. You decided to pop up because, again, for all that stuff that we know and love, we can travel around, we can engage more people by changing locations, and it's cheaper. But then we've gone back, and I guess I'll throw this to Simon initially. Why did we go back? Why did we go back to Rebel, and why are we Rebel now?
I've got a really clear answer now, but at the time I wasn't sure, and I don't think I ever told you guys this. I'm thinking, are we doing the right thing here? We're throwing away 7 years of people knowing who the pop-up business school is, and actually we're going back to a name that no one's heard of before. And I remember when we made the decision, it was about 2 months before lockdown 1, and we ummed and ahed for a bit. Should we actually be spending money at a time where we can't make money? And we've got this design agency from Aberdeen who did some of the earlier designs for Brewdog. Now we're spending a bunch of money with a company that's got lots of reputation here. And I kind of went, and I remember us having the conversation, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Now's the time. Everyone else will be stopping that sort of activity. We've built a business on doing the opposite of everybody else. Let's lean in and let's do it. Let's go for it. So we ummed and ahed. We went through that brand development process, and we kind of came full circle, and came out of that excited about becoming the Rebel Business School. And I think for me, if you compare the two names, Pop-Up Business School describes what we did, whereas the Rebel Business School describes what we're about. And that to me is a powerful kind of, people kind of know, they get a sense of what they're going to get, that it's going to be different. It's not the same old stuff that you're going to get taught. There's something different about this. And it really does, as a name, appeal to I think everybody in our audience. They like to identify with the fact that actually they're being rebellious. They're not doing the path that their parents said, that society says, that their friends and family say they've got to do. They're choosing their own path, and they want to create their own income. They want to create their own freedom. And that's kind of rebellious. And I think that to me really reflects who we are and what we're about. And I love leaning into that. What
I
about you,
think
Al?
for me, it was really simple. Like, oh, we've got a permanent building. We can't be called Pop Up anymore. It was like, that was it. It was like, okay, we have a permanent building. No longer are we popping up. We need a new name. And Rebel Business School was always the name. Like, all the reasons Simon said about Rebel are exactly the reasons why we changed to it. Like, I love the name Rebel. We've got the Rebel Alliance. People are rebels. At Rebel Finance School, we have Rebel Ninjas. Like, it's just cool, isn't it? Just cool. Let's just be rebels.
I love it how like this is such a classic example of how Alan and I work together, which is I've given you some sort of existential, I've thought about this a lot kind of answer, and Alan goes, "It's that, and that's why. Let's just get on with it." And I think a balance of both kind of works.
I hadn't noticed that until you pointed it out, but yes. I get like what's quite interesting about that is that it took us 7, 8, 9 years and then we rebranded. And I think one of the things that we do get a lot is that people and ah over the name of the business for quite a long time, and they worry about getting it right. And we deal with it all the time. And we changed it after 9 years. It's like it almost seems the opposite, and I guess we do the opposite in everything that we do. It just doesn't matter that much. It just doesn't
matter. It just doesn't matter.
I think for me, it's because it's recognizing when it becomes a business, when it transitions from an experiment to a business, and people agonize over the name of their business when it isn't a business yet. Like, you're just running experiments here. Now, the business, it might become a business quite quickly, but for some people it takes a long time. And I think for me, it was us going, we're here to stay. And actually, like, what's a brand that we can grow into? What can help us do the heavy lifting? But when you first start, there's only one person that cares about the name of your business. Nobody else gives a flying banana what your business is called, except you. So actually, like, do your best guess, do a bit of a Google search to make sure that you're not, going to upset. Like, if you called yourself the Coca-Cola Cake Company, for example, like, I know that there's a few people in suits that would get a bit grumpy about that. So you have to do a little bit of due diligence. But to begin with, it doesn't matter what you call yourself. Like, just take your best guess, because the chances are, and I did this myself, the chances are you're going to change it. So, because to begin with, you don't actually know what's going to work. You don't know what your clients and customers are going to respond to. And in this day and age, if you're not involving your customers or your clients in shaping your business, you're missing a trick. The old pre-social media, the whole thing about starting a business it's why it's risky. You're kind of creating it in a vacuum. You're making your best guess of what you think people will like and what they'll respond to. But now you can go and ask 100 people in seconds, what's out of these 5 business names, which one's your favorite, guys? Which one should I go for? And actually shaping your business with other people, that to me is smart, because you're starting the sales process.
Absolutely. So keep us on track. I want to fast forward us to the present day, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happened. And just before I do, we've touched on self-development and resources and titles, and we've mentioned a couple. Like, Simon, you gave 4-hour work week to Alan the first time you guys met. And Alan, you've been on a ruthless self-development journey. I've never met anybody so ruthlessly engaged with self-development as you. And to the point where you'll read a book, already have actioned the things in the book, and then have written a second book about what happened when you put those things in. It's ruthless. But so, like, Alan, just throwing it to you, what are your top 3 for this starting part? If you're launching a business, you've got a great idea and you want to figure it out, what do you think your top 3 resources would be?
Top 3 resources. I'm going to be controversial here and say, don't do anything, just go out and sell. Like, don't read, just come up with an idea. Roughly, what do I want to sell and who do I want to sell it to? And then have a go at it and sell it before it's created. And actually, I think, like, if you're someone who has a tendency to do lots of reading and self-development, stop. Go out and do things. That because actually most people are on that end of the spectrum and they put off sales. They'll read another book. Just, I need to be certain that I know what I'm doing. I need another degree before I do this. I need whatever. Like, just stop, get out there and sell. That's most of the people we operate with. There are a few people who we do need to hold back a little bit and go, you need to learn how to get a license to do this before you do it. But
Brain
that's
surgery, for example.
most people, it is get them out there and get them selling. So I know that's not the answer you were after, Henry, but my answer is stop reading and start selling.
It's not the answer I wanted, but it's the answer I needed. I love that. And I'm just going to quote completely out of context that Alan said stop doing self-development in that segment. So I'm just going to...
we should write that down somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, fast forward to the present, and now I know that is a big chunk. That's a 10-year jump ahead. We've rebranded. We started the business. We've rebranded. We've done a whole bunch of experimenting, and we've proved the model time and time again. Every single year, different industries, different client bases, throughout things that happen in the world, like global pandemics and all that kind of stuff. I think the thing that has kept us massively on track is the values in which we hold. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit about why we started, why were we in the room in Weston-super-Mare, what got us there in the first place. And I think values are the thing that does that. Let's go through those. What are our values? What are our values that we hold in Rebel, and why does that keep us aligned and on the right route and the route that we've set ourselves?
I am curious, Simon, what are our values?
Well, it's interesting because I've got them in front of me, and I have them on my desk all the time. And we've developed these over time as a team. Everybody that's in the team has been involved in shaping them. And as I read them now, I go, they're still not quite right, and they're constantly evolving. And I think that's okay, because what we regularly do, and I'll tell you what they are in a second. What we regularly do is when something goes wrong in the team. Like the conversations that Henry and I have had, and we've had this as well, Al, you kind of go, why did this go wrong? Which of these values did it breach? If we hadn't have breached those values in that thing, would it have solved the problem? And if there's a gap, that makes me go, okay, well, we haven't quite got these right then, have we? So they are very alive. And I think there's things like inclusivity, about nobody getting left behind, and humble brag for a moment, one of the last ever Queen's Awards ever given out for promoting enterprise and opportunity was for that work that we've done, which is starting a business accessible to anyone that wants to have a go. We were making it possible for them. There's something about being rebellious, and that's our sort of catchword for doing the opposite. And I think the first 4 or 5 years of the business, quite regularly in between coffees, we'd go, well, what's the opposite of what everyone else does? Let's do that. And that it doesn't always work that way, because sometimes it's not massively helpful. I'm at the edge of a cliff. Well, what does everyone else do? Well, they move away from the edge. Right, let's jump off. It doesn't always work. But as a rule of thumb, doing the opposite, I think, has actually got us quite a long way. What's your sense of that, Al? As you hear me say those two, and there's a few here, but I just want to give you a chance to check in on those. What jumps in your head?
Well, I like that. I think because I've not been directly involved in the business for a while. I have my own what Rebel values are, but I have not been in touch with what the team are. And I think it's something that I didn't do very well in the early days, was actually pull it together. I think it instilled the values through stories, conversations. So it was just in us. But as the team has grown, that's got harder, and we don't have as much contact with people. And then you need to start writing things down and formalizing it. But the ones I roughly had were taking massive action. That's core value. Let's do things. Number 2 is add value, give, contribute, help others. That's at the core. Everything we do helps other people. 3, I had openness and vulnerability. Like, you have to share, you have to communicate, you have to say when things are going wrong, you have to say when you feel nervous. I had integrity, because I think that's actually really important. And they actually put number 5, if it's to be, it's up to me. Like, just own it and do it. And those were my top 5 that like drive where I'm going and what I'm doing. And I had a couple of anti-values as well. You know, the stuff that like stuff that makes you go, this isn't what we won't do. And I had the like lie, dishonest, take money when we don't believe we can actually deliver it. I had be silent. This one gets me into a lot of trouble. It's like, someone has to stand up to this stuff. No one else is going to do it, so I have to do it. Someone has to stand up to this stuff. And when the like lead agency for housing associations in the UK was doing a program to lend people money, I was like, we need to stand up to this. It's wrong. They're putting people into debt. Simon's pulling a wincing face because I wrote a letter to every CEO in the country going, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. You're putting people into debt. It's bad. And we lost clients over that. We won some friends over that. And
I'm proud of you for that. You know, I was wincing because I like to play, but actually, it was what was difficult at the time was actually the right thing to do, and it was painful for us and it was painful for them. But to be fair to you, do you remember that meeting that we went to where we said we're about to tell every housing association in the country that you're ruining people's opportunities to start a business with this scheme. I'm just giving you a chance to stop it or shape something different with us because we want to help. And they like the poor guy was sat on one butt cheek for the whole of the meeting, and I don't blame him. I think he was a good guy, but I think he was a bit hamstrung. Like this thing is happening. It's a train that's already rolling. And whilst, like you say, whilst it did lose us some business, that anti-value of not putting people in debt or not kind of presenting that route as the route to start a business was actually against everything that we stand for and everything that we knew to be true. So it was the right thing to do, Al. Like, I was grumpy with you at the time, but it was the right thing to do, and I'm proud of that.
we had to stand up to it. And actually, we met the agency that was doing it several years afterwards. And that scheme really didn't help anyone. Like, what we said proved true, but at the time, everyone thought it was a great scheme because it was government backed. There was lots of money behind it. They were handing out hundreds of millions and all the rest of it. And yeah, it just that one gets me in trouble. But I genuinely believe you have to stand up to what you think is right, and you have to stand up to people. No one's doing it in general out of badness. Like, they had very good intentions. They were just going about the thing in a wrong way that created a result they didn't want to create. And yeah, I'm not very good. I'm not very good at staying silent with that stuff. I need to stand up. I need to say something about it. Anyway, that's me off my soapbox. Move on quickly.
Well, I think that's super interesting what you talk about, like the anti-values and you know the lines that we don't colour outside of. And I think what I find super interesting, especially about our business, is that we could probably put a finger on exactly what our anti-values are quite quickly, and I don't think they've changed. Whereas our values and the things that we live by have, and that's changed through starting the business because we had different focuses. It's changed through maintaining the business, and it will change through growing it. So I guess, like, Simon, what's your thoughts on our anti-values? Like, what are the bits that we just don't even go near? It's a hard stop. Like, what are they for you, if different?
Just an extension of the no debt thing, no loans. You know, I think COVID would have killed us off if we borrowed money. I don't mean us as human beings. I mean as a business, just because we'd be servicing a debt, and actually we weren't making any money for that first period of lockdown. So, that was a scary time. But if we'd had any debt, we wouldn't be here now. So I'm so pleased that, and that I was really concerned actually for all of the work up till 2020, so 8 years of training thousands of people in 10 countries of how to start a business without spending any money. If we'd have taught the traditional method, all of that 8 years of work would have been over, because people were struggling. But actually, like with bootstrap businesses, you're more resilient. Anyway, the other bit, I think, Henry, and we've had a bunch of conversations about this, the other bit that stands out as anti-value is when the, I mean this, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but bean counting, where we're getting funded by, and rightly so, there needs to be some scrutiny over public spending, but when the process actually prevents, it prevents us doing our best work, and B, it prevents people from actually accessing it. So, for example, we turned down quite a lucrative contract, which the organisation, like, we won a bid and they wanted to give it to us, but because they said that we had to collect passport information and other bits of stuff, that would mean that there's a whole bunch of people that can't access that opportunity. And I think that inclusivity bit, nobody gets left behind. Think of the people that have never left the country. Think of the people that can't afford a passport, so they get then excluded from getting access to the best, support and help for starting a business that money can't buy. Like, that to me felt like a red line. I'm like, well, that's not what we're about. That stops people from getting started. It doesn't help them. So there was something in that about, basically, I don't like rules. I just don't like rules. And yeah, like, jobs worthy rules, that's what they feel like to me. And it just gets in the way of us doing stuff. I just want to do stuff and help as many people as possible. And it's a red line when there's bullshit stuff that stops me from doing it.
Which I like good rules. I like good rules, like don't murder people, don't steal. These are good rules. Let's use those. But rules of you must like have X piece of paperwork and you must stand in X line, like, it just doesn't really help most of the time. So I guess the summary of this minor section of the podcast for you listening is, what are the values for your business? What are you moving towards? And what will you not do? What will you not stand for? Because if you know that clearly, it helps you to decide which contracts you want to take, who you want to work with, which people you want to hire. The more you understand your values as a business and as a person, the easier it will be to navigate the choices that arise when you're going through business. So if you get one thing from this section, that's the bit. Go work out your towards and away from values, or your positive values and your anti-values.
Awesome. So let's talk about roles. Should we talk about roles? My favourite
That does
topic.
not sound exciting.
So, I think, for those of you listening who follow us, follow the Rebel School closely, and follow Alan and Simon and I, you'll know that we've got quite an interesting makeup of where everyone's at. And Alan's spending most of his time not in country, working on cool projects on different stuff. Simon and I running day to day and traveling the UK, delivering Rebel courses. How does it? So, what I want to dive into basically is what do we all do? Partly for my benefit, because I don't really know, but also externally, because you guys have both created this business, this incredible business that touches thousands and thousands of people a year and supports so many families across the world. What are the roles we're fulfilling? What do we do, and where are you guys sitting in that business now? Fast forwarding 10 years from when we started, where are you guys at? Alan, start with you. Where are you at? What's your role?
Well, I think I threw a massive spanner in the works for Simon, because I was I was about 35, something like that, and I found out about financial independence. So I was like, I'm going to do this. Simon, in 5 years at my 40th birthday, I will be financially independent and I will be going traveling and doing other stuff and having some fun for a while. And Simon went, okay. And I think you just thought, that's a long way off. That's fine. And then like 5 years passed, and I said to Simon, right, Simon, I've hit financial independence. I don't want to travel to Bognor Regis weekly to run events. No
It's
offense,
a nice
Bognor
place.
Regis. I love
Yeah, why
you.
not?
It's a good spot.
Whatever place it is. But I wanted to travel and do other things. So I think that threw a spanner in the works. And I wanted to write a movie. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to go and do other stuff. So I kind of did other things. But that also created all sorts of opportunities. So I think I floated outside of the day-to-day business, and I built a podcast. Katie and I launched Rebel Finance School, and we trained 5,000 people how to get in control of their finances last year. And then we randomly thought, let's build a course called Extraordinary Life. And we helped 2,000 people work on building their extraordinary life. So I kind of like float around causing mayhem, which is probably like, I know Henry hates that at times. But I think some of the stuff we've created, yeah, like it's difficult, isn't it? I threw a complete spanner in the works because I was like, I do not want to be in the day-to-day stuff. I want to do other things. What's your opinion about all this, Simon? I feel like I've dug myself a massive hole and I should be quiet now.
I'm about to fill it in, don't worry. Yeah, it's funny you said the words massive spanner, because I thought, you massive spanner. I can't believe you're doing that. No, I think you're absolutely, like, your take on it was absolutely right. I didn't really process what it meant. I've got to be honest, I just didn't. I just thought, that's somewhere in the distance. That sounds pretty cool. What does that even mean? Like, you know, and I think that with hindsight, I think I've had the realization more recently of, when we started this thing, it was because we wanted to do stuff together. I'll get a bit emotional. And I think it's been, and I think I probably would be in some sort of institution if it wasn't for Henry, actually. But that sense of, but there's still time, of course. That sense of the way that you and I work together. When we're creating stuff, we are absolutely unstoppable, and we've said that since the beginning. And I think at times I've missed that bounce, the last few years. I think when you came out of the day-to-day and went traveling with Katie, I think first you did an experiment. Everything kind of went raw because no one was really ready for the giant Allen-sized hole that was left. But next time you did it, it was brilliant timing, and actually, it caused a lot of opportunities and changes within the team. I've found it quite challenging at times to be not doing this with you, because my skill set needs an Alan. Do you know what I mean? And I think I don't have the same level of get shit done ability that you have. And I think like a combination of my creativity, your do stuff, my support for you and confidence and belief in you was such a really magical mix. So I think like fast forward to now, I think what I was here to do, and the couple of years before COVID and then through COVID and then out the other side, that's felt to me like what my role was. That's what I was destined to do, was to steer the ship from, into some really, really choppy waters and then come out the other side in better shape than we went in. And I've made loads and loads of mistakes, and it's been incredibly testing, not least because of a bunch of personal stuff going on at the same time. And I sort of got to this point now and I go, okay, now it's time for my role to change a bit. And doing that CEO stuff has been really interesting, really challenging. And I thought it's so interesting that when you're an employee in a business, you've got all of these ideas and insights about how to make that business better. And if you were the boss, this is what you do. But when you actually are that person and you go, right, who am I going to point to now for whose fault this is? Oh, it
Me.
stopped here then. Oh, and I think that's been really hard, actually. And I'm so excited for two reasons. One, because I and you, Al, get to support Henry as he steps into that role.
What
and
role's
take
that?
the CEO role. Yeah, you know that. Yeah, we're going to give it to Henry. Are you cool with that? Did I mention that to you?
You're going to give him what?
Yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Oh, by the way, it's already happened. I'm super excited for that, because it means that you and I are able to support Henry into his growth. Here we've got this 27-year-old kid who was all over the place when we first met him, stepping into a role of a CEO of a global business that's doing good in the world. Like I'm putting all of my faith in Henry's ability. I know that I'm talking about you like you're not actually here, Henry, but I'm kind of looking at Alan going, this is a cool moment. And actually freeing me up to do the stuff that I'm really good at and still being involved in the direction of the business, but actually letting Henry steer the ship and supporting and coaching and mentoring and mostly getting out of the way while he does that, I think is a cool space for us to be in. Is that a surprise to you, Henry?
Who's Henry? He sounds great. When I first joined the team, I think I had long curly hair and I was stacking chairs. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yes, you had long curly hair. Mess. You kind of just turned up and did stuff, occasionally got coffee. You helped me file my receipts very, very well, and we both hated it, but we did it. It was a long time ago, Henry. I think if I could just add one thing, I think in every business, the person that created it quite often becomes the person blocking it from getting it to the next stage. And there's this thing called the revolver test. How do you know if you're a business? Well, metaphorically, put a revolver to your head, pull the trigger. Did the business survive without you? If it did, it's a business. If it didn't, you're self-employed because it all relied on you. And that's the clear test. And I was always like, how's this going to happen? How's this going to happen? Is it ever going to happen? Or like, have I built a business that I'm trapped within forever? Which, isn't a bad thing because I love doing it. And there's other things I want to do as well. And it's a constant process of getting out of the way so someone else can have the space to take over and allowing them to make their own mistakes. And it's really tough because quite often that mistake because you've done it. You've made it. It's there. But the next person's like, I can do it better and I can do this. And you're like, okay, go and have a go. But you have to get out of the way and not stop them doing it. Otherwise, they'll never learn themselves. They'll never grow themselves. And I think every business is a constant, okay, help the other person as much as you can and then get out of their way and just let them have a go. And I think I had to get out of the way of you both to go to the next phase. And then I think Simon has to get out of Henry's way and let that happen, to let that go to the next phase. And I think every business, like if you're listening to this right now, who do you need to get out of the way of so that they can actually step up and do the next steps?
Really feel that in my body right now, like that energy of because I tell you what really annoyed me. Let me tell you something that's really annoyed me, right? I've been so frustrated for 3 years with how our team meetings, especially in this new Zoom world that we've been languishing in for a few years now, of getting the rebel energy and enthusiasm and contribution of all of the team in our meetings. Like I want them to fizz and I want them to buzz. And I've really struggled with that as to how to do that. And like it's got harder and harder and I've got more and more frustrated with it. I wasn't on a meeting last week. Henry made a bunch of decisions, changed about 5 different things as to how the team meet. And then I experienced the second or third of those meetings a couple of days ago. And it was one of the most ridiculously brilliant meetings that I've ever been part of in this business. And it really pissed me off because I thought, just taking me freaking years to do this. And that's a sign. That's an example of what you're saying now, I think. It's like there comes a time when, because the energy and the skill set to hustle, because that's really what we were doing in the early days. And I learned a lot of those hustling skills off of you. But it's that sort of, can you do this? Yeah, of course we can. And then go and figuring out how to do that. That doesn't really work when you're in an organization that's got processes and systems and you've got people and other departments and you've got external folk. When it becomes more complex, the hustle can actually cause more problems than it solves. And I think that hustle energy is different to let's do this brilliantly every single time energy. And I sort of sense that's a spot that we're in at the moment, probably overdue maybe.
I don't know.
I
I
don't
feel
want to
like you
lose
still
that.
need hustle energy. You still need hustle energy, even in those projects. Like we get the project, we've won it, and then you've got to hustle to get people on it. And like, but you're right. It's like hustling within a process. It's the energy. It's the drive within it. It does change a bit because there were no rules when we started. Like we made it all up, and then all of a sudden, people are putting rules on us. Things are changing. Things are happening. We have to. Yeah, the business changes. It develops over the years.
Yeah.
Henry, what do you do?
Yeah,
Don't know.
dance, monkey, dance. Tell us what you do.
I think it's super interesting. So I've been thinking about this stuff for quite a long time, and I think we've sort of known this is the kind of direction we think we wanted to move in for quite a few years. And really, I see my role is to make Rebel as efficient, fun as fuck, and just supportive as possible. And I mean supportive across the board of the team that are running it, the people that engage with it, but also both of you as well. Because like I think, taking all that stuff into account that we've just spoken about, like Alan, you are just absolutely ruthless at starting stuff and creating incredible things. That's where the Rebel Finance Schools come from. It's where the Extraordinary Life Experiment has come from. And fast forward 2 years, or not even that long, like that stuff will probably become a part of the everyday delivery of the Rebel School. At the moment, we're still doing that hustle. We're still building it, we're refining it, we're figuring it out, we're learning about it. And once we master what that formula looks like, it'll probably end up being one of the everyday things, right? And I think for me, I'm sort of going like, that just seems to make so much sense to me, to go like, this is what Alan is best at, this is what he enjoys doing, he enjoys creating incredible value and incredible stuff. Let's enable him to do that, support him as much as we can to do that, so that fast forward a couple of years, we get that extreme value and we get to deliver something really cool. And then who knows what you'll be building. That's movie territory, that's TV show territory. Like, you are the guy that's going to make that stuff happen. And then Simon, building out some of the more corporate stuff and touching on those products that we've never quite had the headspace to be able to properly do, because we've been so wrapped up in the everyday. I think so. So I see my job, it's at least in the short and medium term, is enabling that and just supporting everybody that comes into contact with Rebel at whatever level they are to do their thing that they're best at as much as humanly possible. And add resource to it, add budget to it, do whatever it is I need to do, and just make this thing efficient and fun as fuck. That's my goal. That's my absolute goal.
Which I love that. I also wish you hadn't sworn twice because I now have to put an explicit warning at the front of the podcast. But other than that,
can we do bleeps?
yeah, no, we don't have an editor anymore. So I think one of the thoughts I had as you were speaking about that element and taking a process is, for me, I love creating. And then actually when it becomes a formulaic thing, I get bored and I go, I don't want to do this anymore. It takes a long time. Like it took me 10 years, no, like 8 years of running Rebel Business School events to actually go, okay, I've run these in like 5 countries. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I know every question someone could asks me. I'm no longer excited by doing this. I need to hand it to someone else to do. And at the moment, I'm still in the phase where I love Rebel Finance School because people ask me all sorts of weird stuff that I'm like, I have no idea. Let me go and find out. And it's great. It's awesome. But I think that like there's different energies for everyone. It's part of the reason why Simon and I worked so well in the early days was he had a different energy and a different style and we did different bits. And you need to find people that complement you. And I think, yeah, the people at Rebel, they all complement each other so far. Like, obviously, we don't always get that right. But for you listening to this, like, if you are great at sales, find someone who's great at delivery to work with. If you are great at marketing, find someone who is great at whatever it is that you're not great at. And I think that really helps you as a business to come together. It really does. And Henry, like the podcast, we've been going an hour. I know we haven't got through all of your questions, but I think we should probably like start to bring this to a close before we wrap up. And maybe we do a part 2 with some of the other questions that you had. do you have anything before we start to go for the closing remarks and what we want people to take out of this episode? Because I really want to make sure we deliver value from this episode for everyone.
Yeah, I think my sort of bringing this thing to a close, which we kind of touched on a fair bit, but I'd love to underline it, is like I've watched both of you from fairly early on. Employee number one, I came in sort of a couple of years after the business had started, and I've watched both of you go through growing it, building it, dealing with the challenges, being scared of what's going to happen next, being excited about what's going to happen next, handing it over to someone else, stepping back, stepping out of the way, grabbing it with both horns and just driving it to where it needs to be. Like, I've watched both of you do all of that stuff over different timings. Like, I guess I'd just be really interested to know, like, what's your biggest learning that you've had from running this business, building this business, and then stepping out of the way? What's been the one thing that you're really taking forward with this, and the one thing that you want to, I guess, just share with other people? What's your biggest learning?
Simon, do you have one?
Did it look like I'd fallen asleep? I was doing that thing where I was closing my eyes because I didn't want anything to get in the way of my my thought process. But I am still alive, guys. I think the thing. That's a really good question, Henry. I'm going to break the rules and go. There's a few key learnings. One is about sales. Everything is about sales. You got to start with sales. If you don't start with sales, then you haven't got a business anyway, and everything else is irrelevant. And I think I've noticed that as the process is exactly the same. It's just that 10 years on, with a bigger team and more zeros involved, the stakes are higher, but it's the same process. And it gets more complex because there's more people involved, and with people becomes, it brings its extra complexity. But sales, actually, that being commercial, gives you the resources to be able to solve problems and figure it out. I think the second thing is, and this I think will be really interesting to people that are either got a side hustle or are leaning into running a business full time, is one of my most recent realizations is you define what work means to you. I think for too long I was sat in I'm only adding value if I'm doing 10, 12 hours a day. But now I've realized that I can actually add 10 times more value if I focus my time in certain ways and respect when I feel like I want to do certain types of work. So when am I most creative? When have I got most energy? When is the time that I want to make sales calls? When is the time of day that I want to do admin stuff or whatever? And feeling less constrained. And I think we've just had that creativity drummed out of us by the education system and by working for other people. So it's almost like bringing that sort of self-awareness and helping the team to wake up to what they're capable of. And I think that takes me on to my third point, which is it's a people game. And I think the skills that you've got, that you've learned from us, that you've learned from your own experiences, Henry, of figuring out how to help people become the best version of themselves, how to support them. And I think you're much better at the bit that I'm not so good at, which is calling people immediately when things aren't going how you want them to go, and calling people out on their behaviours and challenging things, because we all need to kick up the backside sometimes. But it's that you've got that perfect balance of knowing when to support people, you go out of your way to help people, when to collaborate, when to get shit done, when to step back and let things unfold as they are, and so on. So I'm at risk of talking for about the next hour on this subject alone, so I'm going to pause there.
I love all of that. I think for me, and you sort of touched on it in a lot of your points there. So I think my main learning actually from all of this, there's sort of two parts. One is those anti-values that we spoke about earlier, because the one thing that keeps Rebel congruent through all of these people being at the helm is the things that we absolutely will not do and the things that we strive to achieve. So I think, going back and really figuring out what are your values, what are your anti-values, and it's a best guess. It's going to change. It'll flex around. It doesn't have to be right, because And every time we've ever had a conversation about having a franchise of Rebel in a different country, all of the conversations with Colombia, with Morocco, with France, with New Zealand, the conversation about charging people to attend has always come up. And we've had it with clients. They've gone, what if I pay less and you can charge people? Because that's been a massive anti-value of ours. That's just never been negotiable. Not happening. Never in a million years. We will not charge people for this support. That's the opposite of what we're doing. That means that we have a complete congruent service and congruent delivery throughout all of these people taking the helm. And I think that one of the values that we didn't touch on, so this is part 2, is culture. And, you're sort of bringing it back to what Simon was saying about calling people in the moment, making sure people are using the right behaviours and doing it at the right time and the relevant time. For me, it is a huge, huge culture thing. And you need to surround yourself with the right people, but you also need to give them the tools to create the environment that really, really builds a successful environment. And, Lord knows we have had people that have not fit the culture in the team before for a completely range of different reasons. I don't think we've had the same challenge twice, but it is absolutely incredible how toxic culture breeds toxic culture, and having a great culture breeds having a great culture. It's something that I'm obsessed with, making sure that we've got the right people doing the right things at the right time, so that everybody feels that everybody's got their back, because nobody wants to go into a difficult or challenging environment or situation, without feeling like everyone's got your back. And for me, that's a big part of what having that culture is. So that's my biggest takeout from this stuff.
Love that, Henry. As you spoke, the only repeatable problem that I could think about with people was social media managers. How many social media managers have we had that just go missing and don't do anything after a while? It feels like a repeating pattern. But there we go. That's one of the things that's been a bane of our life, is that particular role. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on the podcast, but it has been an absolute nightmare over the years. Simon's shaking his head. He's going, no, you shouldn't have done, Alan. But, open honesty and all that stuff is one of our values. So my closing thought for everyone is, you can have anything in life you want if you're willing to pay the price up front and in full. And the price of building a business is sales and marketing and delivery. The price of becoming financially independent is reducing your expenditure, increasing your income, investing the gap into long-term assets, and doing it over years. You can have anything you want. You can launch a successful book. You can build a successful social media platform, but again, it's going to take time and energy and effort. When I say price, I don't always mean cash. It means time, it means energy, it means effort, it means getting up in the morning, it means hustling and doing and creating. And this incredible business that we've built has been through the blood, sweat, tears, energy that we've put into it, that you still put into it, that we do. And everyone listening to this, they're out there hustling and making things happening. I want to say to you, if you're listening to this right now, you can get to your dream. We just need to learn, keep going, figure out what works and doesn't, dive in on what works, keep going harder, do the thing you don't really want to do, because the universe is annoying like that, because the thing that you normally have to do is the one you don't want to do. It's just the way the world works. Get over it and just do it. It's really annoying. You can have anything in life you want if you are willing to pay the price up front and in full. So what I wanted to say to you at the end of this episode, as you listen to Simon and Henry, and thank you, Henry, and thank you, Simon, for coming on this podcast and helping with it. Thank you for being my friends. You're not business colleagues. You're my best friends, and I love you both. And we're on this mission together. And as you're listening to this, go out and do it. Find people you love to work with. Find people that compliment you. You can do anything. Go out and make it happen. We believe in you. Thank you for listening to The Rebel Entrepreneur.